Jason Falinski's federal MP, member for Mackellar on Sydney's Northern Beaches. He thinks that ICAC in New South Wales needs a bit of a fix-up, particularly after the scenario that just played out with Gladys Berejiklian. He joins us now. Jason, look, I think that Gladys Berejiklian should have gone because of her failure to disclose the relationship. That said, the 2 weeks of what we saw, well, it's not going to result, in my view, in a recommendation to the DPP. So why did we just go through the past 2 weeks?
Great question, Paul. And I mean, it's not just Gladys Berejiklian that we can talk about here. We can talk about Mike Sealy, Mike Gallagher, Margaret Cunneen, Barry O'Farrell. The list just goes on and on and on. This body, I mean, we need to go back to the point of this body is to discourage and root out a culture of corruption in New South Wales. And it comes out after the Rann years, where there was just a very long-held perception that there was deep and systemic roots of corruption in the New South Wales government. But I think what we've seen over the last 25 years is it has an unfortunate tendency, an unfortunate incentive to go for blockbuster cases, big headlines, rather than actually the hard grafting work of digging out corruption in our public institutions. And unfortunately, what we've seen over the last 2 weeks was another example of where we've had a character assassination that really hasn't, which didn't rise anywhere close to corruption.
Yeah, I agree. And I've got to say, this is my issue about the concept of federal ICAC, right? Which is, again, I think that we got these institutions out of what started as solid media reporting about, among other things, police corruption and systemic corruption, and then therefore a standing royal commission was put in place to oversee those things. Now, very obviously, the quite correct chilling effect of something like an ICAC has seen a whole bunch of behaviours just either stop stone cold or they are off even darker into the shadows. Now, we keep being told by the sort of fake grassroots groups that are going to run against people like yourself and other Liberals that a National Integrity Commission, National ICAC is something people desperately want. What is your position on that particular commission? And if it existed, how do you make sure that it doesn't do exactly what ICAC has just done for the past 2 weeks?
Well, Paul, that's a really great question. So let me start off by saying oversight bodies are incredibly important, like the one that we have in New South Wales, like similar ones that they have in South Australia, I think is probably the best model. Because what it does is it empowers decision makers to effectively say to people who might be trying it on, don't do it, because if you do it, you are putting me in a position where I will be pinged for corruption. And if you even suggest it, I'm in a position where I need to report that immediately to that commission. So it doesn't just act as a deterrent, it also empowers decision makers to have both the authority and the incentive to proactively discourage people from even trying it on. So it's an incredibly important mechanism. The problem is that in South Australia, it works a lot better than it does in New South Wales. And the reason is that it is not incentivised through these public hearings to hunt for headlines rather than to hunt for corruption. And I think that one of the problems is that the two institutions that should be holding this body to account are, frankly, the legal community, who make a lot of money out of ICAC and these ICAC hearings, and the other is investigative journalists who rely on a lot of the investigations and the reporting that ICAC does. So you have these conflicts of interest in New South Wales that all come out of these public hearings. And that's something that I think if we incorporate in the federal body, we will end up in exactly the same problems that we have in New South Wales now.
This is my thing. I just don't want, I just don't want, the Standing Royal Commission into question time scandals, right? As opposed to genuine matters of public import. But again, the fake former Liberals will be running that one anyway in the next little while. But we'll keep calling them out. Jason, all the best. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks, Paul. Really appreciate it.
Good on you, mate.